Great.
Right.
I'm Mike Dury. I'm from Canada, but I live in Germany. I'm involved in 3 different companies because I thought 4 would be too many. One is Key Messages, which is the company I founded many years back. And as the name suggests, it's all about communication. I do communication. I'm a senior copywriter. I have a background in broadcasting journalism as well, and also advisory for multinational corporations. The other organization is a boutique change organization for the insurance industry. And the third organization is a global impact organization. We are active at gatherings like COP, the climate conference, or the World Economic Forum in Davos. We do a lot of publications on topics related to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So I hope that gives a little bit of an impression about what I'm up to. And I would like to start this topic about innovation and entrepreneurship. I'll say by playing the devil's advocate. I want to say, well, first of all, we have to look at what is innovation in the first place. Now, there's a really interesting book by a very fine author, David Edgerton, with the title The Shock of the Old. And this is a play on an earlier book titled The Shock of the New. And what he talks about in this book, it's really fascinating. He talks about all of the innovations we regard as groundbreaking and where they actually came from. I'll give you an example. Let's look at the automobile. Everybody thinks of the automobile as, the internal combustion engine, and then suddenly people are driving around in these things. It's simply not true. What happened, there were many propulsion concepts, steam, electric, and so on. They were all far behind the horse and carriage in terms of efficiency and also user acceptance. The first automobiles were loud, dirty, dangerous, overpriced. Nobody wanted them. Now, one of the things the automobile industry did was to introduce competitions, rallies, races, and so on to boost the popularity. So they gained a certain kind of chic, kind of a panache, appeal, but they still were not really good for much. So what happened? We have good old Mr. Dunlop with the pneumatic tire, plus we have the advent of asphalt paving. So essentially we're talking about the convergence of 3 rather boring technological developments. They came together and boom, we had, with the postal services, we immediately had massive adoption of the automobile. And of course, economies of scale, they became more affordable, and there we go. Really, same thing with the computer revolution. The computers were really a niche, and they weren't. If you look at the earliest examples of data analytics, it was a disaster. And the people involved in it were, like Rand Corporation or Simulmatics, they were making up their results. So they were cheating and stuffing their pockets with money, especially from the U.S. military. It was a scandal. It was a catastrophe, and cost also hundreds of thousands of lives, especially in the case of the Vietnam War. So here's so much for innovation. You couple the computer with the telecommunications infrastructures, internet, and boom, suddenly you have all of this data. You have this computing power, Moore's law, growing and growing, and here we are. So the idea of the mad scientist in the basement coming up with this brilliant idea, eureka, forget it. It's not how it works. It's simply not how it works. So the other thing I want to talk about is entrepreneurship. Now, if you look at the earliest beginnings, where does this word come from? Obviously, it's a French word. The English word was enterprise. Well, we still talk about enterprise and free enterprise, but as a verb, enterprising has fallen into disuse. Be that as it may, in the Middle Ages, an entrepreneur or an enterpriser was actually looked down upon. This meant someone taking something that didn't rightfully belong to him. And I'm saying him because these were probably always men. So that means grabbing someone else's property, attacking another dukedom or, principality, and maybe on some trumped up charge, legal claim, saying, my cousin's cousin had a claim to part of this. These kind of wars were all over the place. And it wasn't until much later, after the Industrial Revolution, the idea of enterprise, entrepreneurship, took on a more positive aspect. And so essentially, I would like to say that just to stay grounded, if you look at entrepreneurship, it means not accepting the status quo, not saying, well, my father was a shoemaker, so I'm a shoemaker, but saying, well, okay, my father was a shoemaker and my neighbor is a gardener and my other neighbor is a day trader. So I've got all of this input. What can I make of it? What can I do to grab more from this world, to participate in a larger sense, in a sense that's greater than what I am right here now? I'll pause there and I can segue in the next circle around to how this applies to my career.
Thank you, Michael. It was interesting listening to you, learning from you. My name is Yogesh Chabria. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm the founder of the Happionaire Way, and I've always been fascinated with business, with selling. I used to sell at a very young age. And I feel when you let go of fear, we have so much fear in our head, we become more capable to innovate, more capable to take action. So I'm looking forward to listening to everybody, learning, and I look forward to Aaron's views. So that's my brief introduction.
No worries. Thank you very much, Yogesh. Thank you for throwing the ball to me. Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm the founder of Aaron Public Speaking Studio. I'm also a TEDx coach for over 100 different TEDx events. I'm also a TED coach to coach TED speakers up the stage around the world. So it's my dedication and belief that I always believe that every single one have the potential to speak at any stage around the world. I aim to help 50,000 people, and by the age of 50 years old, I hope to have a renowned public speaking university that's recognized and help everyone to find their own jobs in this pandemic. Well, it's a big dream though. In terms of entrepreneurship-wise, my belief related to it is that anyone can do anything, just like public speaking-wise. You can mold your opportunity out. When there is opportunity, there comes crisis, but every crisis comes opportunity. So it is up to everyone to think about how to use this opportunity and tap it further in this own potential way. So I'll pass the stage to our next speaker.
Hey guys, my name is Akhilesh Behel. I'm the founder and CEO of Malt and Salt Hospitality. As the name suggests, we're an F&B business. We help create F&B brands, ignite F&B journeys for entrepreneurs and investors around the world. And we work very heavily in process-related businesses for food and beverage. For me, innovation, is not just about technology or the tech revolution within food and the food tech phenomenon of ordering and ordering platforms and aggregators, but I think it goes much beyond. It goes much beyond to the science of food, and that's what we try and work upon with our new concepts and cuisine formats that we try and create. The kitchens of yesterday are no longer the kitchens of today, and there probably will no longer be kitchens in the future in homes. The new homes being developed around the world have pantries that don't have kitchens. So we're trying to see how we can yet bring old world food to today and beyond. And when I say beyond, I'm talking, not even 3 to 5 years into the future. It's changing at a very rapid phase. So that's innovation for me. And we're trying to work on healthy formats. We're trying to work on key ingredients. We're trying to bring natural ingredients forward, but yet trying to see how we can do it quicker, in a nicer manner, in an easier manner, and yet make it palatable across the world, across cuisine. So that's innovation for me. And I'm sure we'll debate and get perspectives, my side and from the other speakers in due course. I've passed this on to Frederick now.
Thank you very much. My name is Frederic Dormé. Please never order a Chinese takeaway with that name. I don't think it will ever get to your doorstep. It's a disastrous and very complicated one to use, but I'm founder and CEO of Universal Luxury Consulting, which gives a hint in the name and the concept of it's a global concept, and we offer consulting within the luxury space, which is also quite diverse because luxury can be pretty much anything today. From the idea of innovation, I think the reality is if we don't innovate, if we don't force ourselves, we will become the Kodaks, the Nokias, and everything that sadly sometimes you see for those who don't go ahead with things. There was a wonderful comment by Mahatma Gandhi who said, learn as if you were to live forever, live as if you were to die tomorrow. I think the sadness of the human race is we're quite lazy. So we could easily go through life not pushing ourselves on that learning curve. We do the schooling, we do the various things, and then we sort of hope that life takes us on. So there is a push need requirement on innovating and pushing yourself, the company you're working for, the clients you have, to go that little bit further. Entrepreneurialism, being entrepreneurs, I think we all are. I think there was this wonderful thing whereby, well, if you're in the corporate entity, you're not an entrepreneur because you're in the corporate world. It's only those who are doing their own thing that are entrepreneurs. But I think no, I think in our own rights, we are. There is a difficulty, having come from a corporate background, that you are quite comfortable and you're not necessarily pushed to become that entrepreneur because the big system is running, you're a little cog perhaps in that big system, and so therefore you sit back and perhaps go with the ride. But I think each and every one of us in some capacity has the ability to be an entrepreneur, but like we say, you've got to go out and do it a little bit. It's tough, not easy, but looking forward to the discussion.
So first of all, just get the ball rolling a little bit. Now, every one of us are entrepreneurs, like in different fields. So number one, that's definitely a question that is posed for every single one. Think about one big challenge that you face in your entrepreneurship. One big challenge that you would like to share with everyone, and one solution that you solve it. So I'll start with Michael.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Really, really good question. I would say, getting back to my rant about what is innovation and what is entrepreneurship, what happened to me is I came to Germany, actually initially planning to stay about 1 year. And I have a background in writing. It was the very first thing I wanted to do as a profession in school. And so I discovered that there's a lot of commercial writing in English that takes place in Germany. Now, Germany at the time was the world's #1 exporting economy. It's still, export is a big topic in Germany. It's not #1 anymore, obviously. Doesn't matter. What happened was that I was sussing out the market for English copywriters, and I discovered, well, the copy was being produced in German and translated. Now, of course, the translations are all lousy, as translations tend to be, but it didn't matter because the people judging the quality of the translations were also German and had learned their English in school. So, vicious circle, a perfect storm. So my innovation, again, and this is not a massive technical breakthrough, it's just connecting dots. And I think this is one of the things to take the fear out of innovation. My entrepreneurial journey was to say, okay, I'm going to approach multinational clients in this country, Germany, as an English senior copywriter. And I spoke with people in the industry and they said, forget it, never gonna work. I said, okay, I'll do it anyway. And boom, there was massive acceptance. The whole thing has just been an amazing journey just because I was able to connect the dots and offer a superior solution and a more intensive service than the clients had experienced so far. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing I'd like to say, again, sorry for being the devil's advocate here again, but Frederic, the example of Kodak. Let's not forget that Kodak invented the digital camera. This was a tremendous innovation. Kodak missed was the potential. And so Kodak was profiting from the fees on its patent. And of course, patents run out. And then there was Kodak with no digital camera offering, no services. I think that there's a big lesson. It's not so much having the ideas, doing innovation. It's the hard work that gets those innovations up and running.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing. Now, I really want to hear from your guest. You are a speaker and an author. I'm really curious about what challenge you have and the solution for that.
I think anybody who's alive faces challenges. I don't think there's anybody who's alive who doesn't face challenges. I like the DLC team. They're always laughing and smiling, which is really nice. But so many challenges, and I think we can learn from every challenge. I'll share something. I remember when my first book was coming out, I was around 23 years old, and I wanted to make sure the message reaches a lot more people. And in those days, aviation was just picking up in India. And we had lots of new airlines coming up in India. And I said, I had an idea that why don't we sell these books on the plane? Because on the planes, in the domestic airlines, you don't have TVs, right? So I decided to approach every airline. I wrote an email to every CEO. So I first wrote to an airline called Jet Airways. I said, hi, I'm Yogesh Chhabria. My new book is coming out and I would love to meet you. And he said, okay. So I went and met him in his office. He's a senior, nice gentleman. He was dressed in a nice suit like Frederick. And I go to meet him and we interact. I say, this is my book and I would love it if we could sell it on your plane and we can do a revenue share. This is the proposal. And he looked at me and he said, Yogesh, we have never done this before. And I said, I'm sure you have never done this before, but imagine if the Wright brothers thought like you. If the Wright brothers said, nobody's ever flown a plane, we would never come up with a plane. And I think maybe that offended him, I don't know. And he said, no, we can't do it. I said, you have nothing to lose, you don't have to invest anything. If the book sells, you share the revenue. He said, no. I said, okay. I went to the second airline. This was an airline called Kingfisher. They just launched. They put posters of models. So models are going to be in the plane. It's a very glamorous airline. Again, I go and meet, the CEO, and I give him the same pitch. He says, we have never done it before, so we can't do it. I said, okay, no problem. I went to a third airline, and I think innovation comes when you keep trying, and I was very playful. So I went to a third airline called SpiceJet, and they were a young airline, and I said, you have nothing to lose, you can make money, you can reach out to people. And he said, okay, let's try it out. We tried out with a couple of 100 books, and it did so well, it became the highest selling book, because it's selling at 35, 40,000 feet, and there is no competition. Because when you go in the plane, there's no other book. And we had a lot of fun with it. And I always believe you will hear a lot of no's. Nobody's going to just come and say, we love you, come on board. Maybe they do. But most of the time, anytime you come up with something new, you will face resistance, you will face challenges. Just have a playful attitude and just keep going. That's what I feel.
Great, man. Great insights.
That was really amazing. I think I learned a lot from you. Just by doing all those actions, you are able to really stimulate a lot of light bulbs around the world. Now, Akhilesh, I was hearing that you're from the food industry just now. So there should be a lot of challenges in this industry for even the past 10 years or so. Would you like to share some of your challenges and solutions for that, though?
It's such a fast-paced format and industry around the world. And, when I moved in here, why 10 years? I mean, if you look even longer or shorter, the fundamentals of F&B predominantly as human beings remain the same. We need to eat and drink to consume, to stay healthy, to, the whole 9 yards. And that's the cycle of life. But, we all as consumers in the process, either break down the business or our requirements, or superficially glamorize the whole dining experience. So, if you look at the pyramid, and I always stress on the pyramid and, trying to see how can you or how can I strive and work harder to go up the value chain. And going up the value chain is not about doing bigger restaurants or larger F&B formats or event-based experiences. For me, the value chain dynamic is probably a bit more intellectual based, trying to see if you've done QSRs, can you do a gourmet format? Can you do a dine-in format? How better can you provide value to a customer by elevating experience and by elevating cuisine, but the constant striving effort and struggle largely also is how can you yet remain true to your basics of cooking food, preparing good beverages, being ethical about the ingredients and the cooking styles, and making sure you serve to your customers that you yourself as a consumer at home or outside would want to eat. And that's the dynamic that I work with all the time. So innovation has been multifold. It's been about working in a fast-paced environment, trying to bridge the gaps, looking for white spaces, white gaps within cuisines and formats, and trying to see how one can fill them up. It's also been about, COVID. It's been such a great leveler for our industry. Somebody like me, and I have no qualms in admitting it here right in front of everyone, every panel. Someone like me was probably the first to get hit and the last to recover, in the life cycle of F&B. A consultant is the first, approach where businesses will say, hey, we need you, you're great, your advice is very crucial, but listen, our business is shut, we have no money to pay you. So that's the X. And when you come down to recovery, you're still in the network, you're still friends with everyone around, and everyone's a friend in reverse. But you still struggle to come back to figure out what are the ways of doing business in the new format, and that's the post-COVID new format scenario. So for me, it was about innovating the business model completely. And that's when I went and started looking at all the independents that were struggling, all the advice, hand-holding, mentorship that not restaurants, but their owners required. And these were chaps who, have put in their hard-earned money, they're very passionate, and they're at a point now where they don't probably have enough money to pay the rent or the salaries. And we started talking to them, and we started bringing them together onto a discussion forum saying, listen, let's learn from each other. Let's try and hold hands. Let's try and provide as much support to you as possible to, bring in some investors if required, to start supporting and creating a stability fund. And with the stability fund, provide expert counsel to these entrepreneurs and help them run through 3, 6, 9 months of difficult days and difficult months. So that was for me, innovating my own life and my own business model for Malt and Salt, not from a monetary, selfish perspective alone. I mean, I have bills to pay, and like everybody else, you got to run a house and run a business, but also larger for the industry. And that I felt, by let's say early 2021, mid of 2021, was kind of very well received within colleagues, within the network, within the industry. And I feel from a challenge perspective or from an innovating and developing perspective, that was a tough period, that we all went through. And I today, looking back, nearly end of 2022, I'm very happy for the struggle that we went through, because it made me realize that if you stop innovating and if you start thinking, hey, life's good and you're in a comfort zone and you're in auto mode and you'll keep driving, in the 5th gear at 140 miles, you will come crashing down, and then you've got to start picking up the wheels again. So that's the cycle we've been through.
Really, thank you for sharing that. I think, to me, that roller coaster ride is indeed a journey there. Now, the next one I will definitely have to ask is Frederick. He's in the luxurious industry, right? And due to the pandemic itself, it really affects and impacts a lot of people around the world. And even like the global GDP is kind of affected in that way. So what are your challenges that you faced for the past few years, and any solutions for that?
I mean, I faced a big challenge. I faced the challenge of leaving the corporate world, which I discussed earlier, which was a difficult one to do. In the corporate world, in the big entities where you've grown, you've got a lot of comfort, and you've got that comfort because you are performing. And to leave that, to step out of business class, to step out of your pensions being comfortably contributed to step out of your guaranteed salary, no matter in the context of managerial positions versus that of sales, it's there no matter what the results are. And I tell you what, when COVID hit, I would have personally perhaps much preferred to have stayed in corporate with that comfort versus the challenges I faced in entrepreneurship, which was very much losing projects. We lost a lot of projects. We lost them due to COVID. We had a phenomenal yacht show that we created with a friend of mine, and we lost it because Donald Trump said no one comes to the States. So our Rybovich and Fort Lauderdale show got cancelled. We then had the second show in Barcelona at the same timing as the Formula One race in Catalonia. They were cancelling their race, and we knew for a fact the show would be cancelled as well. So, I personally went through what I call the carpet being completely pulled out from underneath you. The solution, which there necessarily isn't one, but it is still making sure that you're there. It's making sure that people know you exist, making sure that people are aware that you can bring something to the table, and making sure you're bringing it, what I would call within the spectrum of what you can offer, and not just sort of diversifying yourself for the sake of it. So you've got to have that ability to say, look, this is what I'm good at. No point in taking me on for that, as much as I'd like to be taken on for it now in such difficult times. So the solution was really keeping with what you know, taking on the experience of what you've had, and carrying on and fighting through, and eventually that comes about. But it was, for me, that challenge of stepping out of that very comfort world and jumping into something like, Akhilesh was saying, we've got bills to pay, and consulting is not necessarily a guaranteed concept every month. But the wonderful part of it, the wonderful solution part that brings to it, is your choice of working on many, many different projects. There were times I was in the racing world with cars, onto big boats for something else, onto a VAT solution for ownership structure. So your mind is wonderfully being used left, right, and center, but not an easy one. Far from it.
Thank you, Frederick, Akhilesh. Aaron, why don't we hear from you? What are your views on innovation, and why must innovation be disruptive, and what challenges have you faced with innovation?
Oh, you're making me very timid on this question, though. Especially, I was actually one of the few people that was impacted the most, like really roller coaster ride. In the pandemic itself, the first type of occupation that will be really cut off are the trainers. And I'm also a corporate trainer myself. I was like really the first one to be targeted by my boss and say, look, your services are not needed here. Hey, but the thing is, there are always different solutions for that. Luckily, with my expertise, I have 10 years, at least more than 10 years of innovative cells in my head right now. I planted a lot of different innovations in my way of refining public speaking. I specialize in public speaking and this art for the past 16 years. I always think about what happens if there's one day in the world that we cannot meet face to face. What happens if we cannot talk anymore? What happens if there are lots of different issues that we cannot foresee? And that's where it started into the virtual community, the hybrid community, where I faced a lot of resistance back in the days because they were like, no, I don't like to change. I prefer face-to-face. Who would go online and chat? But it brings me back in the days whereby I still use MSN. How many of you have used MSN before? These are my old childhood days.
MSN and Yahoo Chat.
I still remember that Yahoo Chat, AIM, any chat stuff you name about that. I'm still using it. I mean, that's the day where it stimulates every single emotion that you miss your family and friends. You just like webcam and say, hi mom, how is dad? How are you guys doing? And that's where the stimulation comes by. And for that, I think about if there's one day because of a very big outbreak, AKA like the pandemic now, what happened? Is there any other solutions to help everyone to maintain communication and effectiveness globally around the world? And here comes my opportunity after 10 years of agony, really exactly agony, because 10 years of resistance on this hybrid and virtual element, after which I start to go up. I start to go higher even before that my expertise were needed because there was no one in this industry that was focusing on virtual trainings. And that's where I start training around the world. I trained like 80 different countries in 3 months. I did over 3,000 workshops every single day. No, not 3,000 workshops every single day. That would be crazy. 3,000 workshops in 3 months.
You would have to clone yourself to have 3,000 workshops in a single day.
I spend literally 24 hours maximum per day, and I nearly ended up in hospital because I was actually saving a global crisis on something called the online content.
So you were happy with the pandemic, and you were like,
I was happy. My salary raised 10 times more than that. So preparation is key for this one, okay? So always, if you prepare, you have the innovation there, because you always think about what possibilities are there in the market. And that is like, hey, I just got it. I just got the kick there. And that's where it's there. Now like there's one big company that's focusing on that. That's Meta, Facebook, which is focusing on virtual reality and metaverse itself. But luckily for me, I did it before Meta did. So now I actually focus more on holographic more, because I love holograms. I love creating anything. As long as you have two hands and some technical stuff, you're able to create awesome presentations. So that's where I focus on more, and helping people with disabilities as well. There's a lot of different attention to it. And that's where I think that during this pandemic itself, I was finding a lot of solutions. And one area that focused to me as one of the biggest challenges that I want to face in my lifetime, really, this is one of my dreams for that, is that if I can help those people who become vegetable patients, vegetable patients, AKA brain dead patients, who are able to communicate with different people, like their loved ones. Just think about someone who has a tragic accident and their families are relying on this really important person. Think about that. I really wish that this person is still able to communicate, maybe through brain waves, although they are brain dead technically, but different possibilities whereby they can still maintain this connection, that there's something that the family still fights for. Because if this brand owner, for example, has left the family is scattered. I really wish that there is something I can really do for that. And that's where I start to think about lots of different ideas to solve it. It's still in progress, but it doesn't mean the ideas stop there. I'm still making different progress related to it. I'm sure that there will be different things to solve. Yeah.
Aaron, one thing you mentioned which was interesting, you touched on metaverse. You touched on what our dear Zuckerberg is trying to believe as investors a good thing. I think the danger of innovation is that those who really go beyond the scope of comprehensibility can lose the client, can lose your investors' understanding of what are you trying to do. I mean, we've only just comprehended this concept of the screen, and there's the iPhone 13, 6S Plus, 3, 5. I mean, hang on a second. I think I still have the iPhone 6S, which I get an awful lot of sort of problems and looks at, but I think go ahead on the innovation. But if you don't pull people with you, because that brain is so wonderful, it's so beyond, generally speaking, sometimes. If you don't keep us in the loop, the investors are going to do exactly what they've done currently. They're going to start pulling out and going into things they understand. So I think there is that challenge for the innovator and the enthusiastic entrepreneur to make sure that people get it, because it's not an easy thing to understand. And as we get more complicated and more sophisticated, and everything that is not what it was in the wonderful 20s, where we just had bowler hats and we went for lunches and things were moving forward, perhaps not the pace they're moving forward today. If you do not keep people in the game, then they'll lose interest.
Actually, related to the point, right, is what you mentioned about things that set us backwards. Setting backwards actually are three things you mentioned just now: lack of clarity, lack of visions, and most importantly, they don't see them being part of it. So these are things that really set us all back. And innovation, to move things forward, we actually really have to explain with a clear concept. Even with clarity, there's still misunderstanding. That's where we focus on communication. We want to make sure that it's connected with them, they are related to them, and they are able to imagine with us. That's what makes things so special. If you're able to think along the way, like the next 50 years, if we're able to foresee that, we are actually able to bring this change into place. Not until until the pandemic really struck, just like what we have experienced just for the past few years. The pandemic struck, and then that was like, where are the solutions? No one's providing solutions, but there are always innovators who are waiting by, creating different solutions to move us forward.
I just had a thought on the metaverse. While we're on the while we're on the subject, Aaron, you mentioned something about communication, and that's your forte. And Frederick, I agree with you when you say that, dear friend Mark is trying to justify investors' funds with all the bloodbath he's unfortunately witnessed over the last few months. But it's on the tech side, and from a hospitality perspective, I think two key takeaways that we've been witnessing on the metaverse, and we're trying to actually do a bit of work with our partners, is one, Aaron, to your point, I think communicating forward. It's for F&B brands of a certain size and scale. It's about communicating brand awareness and visibility and trying to reignite at a certain level. But I think a very, very big element, which not a lot of people have been thinking about, is education. So when we think about, F&B and hospitality and doing culinary courses, in the pandemic, and we witnessed, we work with one of the largest culinary institutes here in the UAE, and we've got a very deep engagement. And one of the things we realized was that students who come from outside and live on campus and train here to become chefs of the future suddenly are unable to work, unable to train, unable to visit the center, leading to a natural deterioration in skill sets that are required by the industry, when the industry would reopen. And that's when the technology was so important. And metaverse, we started working around on a metaverse platform with our partners in trying to see how this same education can be taken via the metaverse, where you could have the entire education curriculum and culinary skills with chefs from around the world on the metaverse training in a live format. So now imagine where the entire sphere goes. And pardon my, saying this, but prior to this, my understanding of metaverse was, just about saying that, hey, it's very gimmicky. But when we got slightly more engaged and involved and started understanding the dynamic internally, and I realized that there is a far greater, deeper impact that either metaverse today or naturally in 12, 18, 24 months, something else will evolve out of metaverse as well, and there will be sub-shoots. One of those sub-shoots can become so big from even an education perspective that I think it will just, be a phenomenon around. So I just wanted to butt in and, give my 2 bits on what we've been through from, again, born out of necessity or innovation in the post-COVID scenario.
I'd like to just pick up those 2 threads. One, the difficulty of communicating innovation and finding acceptance and reaching penetration of innovation, and also the aspect of education. So again, there's a really interesting book by 2 fascinating authors. They're brothers, Chip and Dan Heath, and the name of the book is The Myth of the Garage. And in this book, they detail how so many innovations where we imagine these garage entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, making something from scratch and fighting against all odds and coming up with these innovations. Not how it happened. All of these guys had backing with deep pockets. They also had connections in the tech industry and were helped by family members. Everybody thinks of IKEA as this innovative company that was the first to sell furniture in a flat box that you assemble yourself. That was not his innovation. His innovation was to have his furniture manufactured in communist Poland at a very cheap price, and also in modern designs that appealed to a young urban population in cities like Stockholm. And returning to the concept of education, I think one of the key aspects, and again, sorry, a book. There's a fascinating book by a brilliant woman named Carol Dweck, who was a professor, I believe she's retired now, professor at Columbia and at Stanford. And she wrote a book titled Growth Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And she talks about the concept of a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is you say, well, you to your children, for example, well, you're talented. You can be the greatest figure skater in the world. You've got the talent. Or you say, well, figure skating is really hard work. If you keep at it, maybe, if you're lucky, in 5 years, you'll get someplace. And you're definitely going to learn a lot along the way, so go for it. And I think this spirit of a growth mindset and of failing forward, accepting failures as part of the learning process is absolutely essential in both entrepreneurship and innovation. And if you look at the path any innovation has taken, be it the mapping of human DNA, the digital camera, you know, there have been so many failures along the way, and look where we are now. So I'll pause there.
Michael, can I just pick up on that? I think one of the things that we do terribly badly, and we've done it almost in this session, is when we talk about entrepreneurs, we hit on immediately the big names, the big knownnesses, the big companies, the big what have yous. And that tends to put, I find sometimes, the younger generation going, well, I'm never going to make that, so I'll just stay doing what I'm doing until I can do it. And I think what we have to strive to push into the people's mindset is, look, you can innovate at home, you can innovate your relationship, you can innovate the way in which you walk your dog. I have to do it about half an hour and I'll try and think of something, but you can do it at your local level. It doesn't have to be, God willing, you'll get to that level if that's where you're supposed to be, but don't let it put you off the fact that, oh, it's too big for me, that's too grand scale, it'll never sort of come to my sort of desk. So I think we've got to also push to give that confidence. And, Yogesh, at the very beginning, you mentioned the word fear. There's a lot of fear there. There's a lot of fear of making a mistake, embarrassing your parents, not going the right way, losing your friends along the journey, losing money, not having any responsibility. All that fear puts people then sadly into a box where when they're 50, 60, 70, 80 on their deathbeds, they're going, I wish I'd have just tried that. And I think it's our responsibility with the teams you have or the friends you have, to push them down the road of be comfortable, go and give it a go and risk. Whether you become the Bill Gates or not, doesn't matter.
No, very well said, Frederick. Very well said.
Very good point, Frederick. And I think it's important to remember that fear, that courage without fear is simply stupidity. Courage means feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Well, there's one thing that I have to chip in for this factor. There's one missing element that's missing here, which is even when you have to innovate, we have to expect a lot of different resistance and stuff like that. But the thing is, we have to create a safe haven to actually even kick off anything. If you are going to give out lots of different ideas, everyone can be, even if the viewers now, if you're actually viewing this podcast right now, please bear in mind that you can be an entrepreneur. You can be creating a lot of different things. Let your ideas fly. But make sure that you're in a safe zone. What I mean by safe zone is that your ideas are recognized and respected. There are lots of different places whereby lots of ideas are being gushed out, like startups or even like pitches, whereby your ideas are there, but the thing is that they're always shut down. This is something that I really want to encourage everyone, that don't feel about the resistance that's there, because the resistance are just making you stronger. The resistance are because they don't want to change. It doesn't mean that you have to follow and comply with them. Everyone, you have their own value, your own ideas are worth to be shared with the world. Just like what TAD do, but then your ideas are unique. Guess what are your thoughts? You haven't said anything about it.
No, I was listening, I was observing, I was learning. I think it was interesting to know from Michael about IKEA. I did not know about its warehouse catching fire. I think both, as Michael said, everything. So if you have courage, you have fear. If you have hate, you have love. Nothing can exist without the other. So if you want to feel happy, you have to also feel sadness. And when it comes to innovation, and the topic is how entrepreneurial innovation drives an organization, I think any organization that gives freedom to its people. So if you are an entrepreneur, I know a lot of DLC members are entrepreneurs, business owners. If you have like an area, or if you have, say, if your budget is 100, if your turnover is 100, if a part of that budget you allocate to experimentation, to innovation. So even if it goes wrong, because when you innovate, you will make mistakes. When you try something new, you will make mistakes. And as Aaron said, you don't want to bet all your money on something. So you can experiment, and out of 4 things, 3 things, 5 things you try, probably all 3 will fail, or probably all 4 will fail. But out of those, over time, 2 things happen. One is your people get the freedom to experiment and try it out. So if you have a kid, if I have a kid, I don't know if anybody here has a kid. If you have a kid and if you just tell them, no, don't do this, they will resist. But if you tell them, okay, go ahead, try it out. Try it out. And after that, if they fail, and then they come back and they say, Dad, you were right, or Mom, you were right, it gives you a different thing. So I think get a lot of things are in your mind. A lot of things you have in your mind that are holding you back. And with innovation, I think a lot of it is mental. You let go of your resistance. If you need help, to reach out to people. Many times people are afraid to reach out. Just reach out to people, connect with people, and just bring in this thing of innovation in your companies, because if you bring it in, you will be excited. Every morning when you get up, you'll be excited, and you will be excited only if you do something new. And I love the way the DLC team is all laughing and excited, So that's my take on it. And it's been a pleasure being here with all of you, learning from you, Michael, Aaron, Akhilesh, Frederick.
Yeah, as a conclusion from my side, I'd say, Aaron, I'm going to pick up on your safe zone. If we're working, and if we take the personal life away, when we work, we either work for a company in some capacity, or you're working for yourself. If you're working for a company, it's the company's responsibility to make sure that safe zone exists, to make sure they are listening to employees. And the bigger the company gets, look what's happened, Twitter recently, and the way they've been handled, and the way that's perhaps not the best way you're going to get the best innovation out of people. I think that company's responsibility is to go, how do we do it? And that's down to the boss level, where they've got to be taking their ego to one side. I'm this, I'm the owner, I'm the regional president. Forget that. How are you allowing your employees to innovate and bring to this company who they have chosen to work for? And I would say to those who are not being allowed to do that, leave. Go somewhere else. Have the courage, I was going to use another word, have the courage to go elsewhere. And if you're not in a company, and it's really you who are bringing in the bills and sorting things out and finding that consultancy, whatever it is you're doing as an individual entrepreneur, then it's a little bit more down to you to get up in the morning and be that innovative thinking process. Because beyond perhaps parents, girlfriends, and wives who are questioning you, you are going it alone. Not an easy thing to do. You can't rely on that corporate structure to help push. You've got to be that little bit more incentivized to go out there and be that innovator.
I think my closing remarks here are a combination of entrepreneurship and innovation hand in glove, because both can be kick-started or grown, born out of, on one hand, sheer necessity of survival, and on the other hand, sheer passion to grow. And one needs to find that balance. A great necessity and a great passion combined together within my head and heart, where I wanted to be on my own, and I wanted to create a company that I could really grow beyond what I imagined it to be. And I'm on that journey. It's been 8 years in, and I really hope when I get up every morning, my task is what is it that I'm doing new today, and that drives both my necessity and my passion. And I think that's my big takeaway on entrepreneurship and innovation together.
Yes, and thank you for referring to entrepreneurship and innovation in India. In India, I've worked in India for many, many months at a time. For over the years, I had many, many colleagues in India, and I'm a huge fan of Jugaad and the concept of humble or frugal innovation. Because in my change work, I accompany change processes in corporations. One of my favorite examples is Tata Motors. The way Tata Motors introduced supply chains and Kanban and Kaizen. They brought in Japanese engineers. And how do you do this? How do you get Indian workers to accept the Japanese mindset? The answer is you don't. You simply say, hey guys, Today, we're going to do things differently. And Indians are geniuses at improvisation, about accepting something different today from what it was yesterday. So hats off to Indian entrepreneurs. I think I've given a glimpse of my attitudes and my thinking on these topics. I would just say, I mean, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I would just say that my advice to anyone who wishes to enter business, to be an entrepreneur, anyone who has an innovation, accept failure, accept that it's a growth process, feel the fear, do it anyway, gather as many allies as you can. No man is an island, no woman either. And innovation is not about that eureka moment in a bathtub. It's not about a mad scientist in a basement coming up with an ingenious idea. It's about connecting the dots and hard work, lots of it. So that's my take.
So for me to end off everything else, I leave everyone with two quotes. Number one is, when we stop learning, we stop growing. But the other one is, I just came out like 5 seconds ago. When we stop innovating, we end up losing. Like, what do you mean by losing? Doesn't mean you lose in a competition. You lost a lot of possibilities that you can make the world a better place, a better community, whereby everything is progressing further. It's because every single entrepreneur, every single company out there are actually making a difference, moving things forward. Just like before iPhones, there are lots of different ideas around. iPhone pushed it further. Without lots of geniuses who are backing up computers, there wouldn't be a lot of different machineries these days that we have to rely on heavily, even doing the Zoom right now. These are things that's moving us forward. And even when there's like pandemic, whereby we realize that there's a need, there are always pioneers, there are always entrepreneurs like us that we are making a difference by making these ideas to be a reality. I think everyone should encourage it. That's why we do a lot of different pro bonos to support a lot of things. Just like what we mentioned earlier on, like education, we do help a lot of different people. Like for me, I help a lot of people in public speaking. I'm sure everyone else here definitely help a community on their own and really make that difference. And really encourage every single one, viewers out there, don't just think about entrepreneurs are just doing their business on their own. We are also innovating to push things forward. Every one of us are making a difference. I hope that everyone can bear in mind that if you have the idea out there, make that happen. No matter whether you are going to resist and face a lot of resistance, stay true. Focus on clarity. Relate with people. Be the visionary. Because not many people can see the same vision as you do. Maybe we aren't. We are at the level of stage that we can't see your vision, but we're only willing to support that too. So it's just that as long as everyone have an idea, even our panelists here, if you have an idea, push it forward. Let us know, and we are going to make that happen too. Before we end, I'm sure that everyone are curious about what we do have in store for us, right? I think like some potential offers, any potential offers that you would like to offer to our viewers there, that they will learn a lot of innovative ideas from us.
I'd like to offer me in a peculiar way. I think, we have this wonderful thing called LinkedIn, which, Michael, thank you very much indeed. I've seen your thing this morning, and it will be an absolute pleasure to connect us with anyone else. Please do feel free to reach out. I mean, perhaps the response won't come immediately, but we are here to help, and not necessarily just in our countries as we try and do, but we're there to help give that little bit of guidance, that little bit of support, that little whatever flicker of light bulb you're needing, or confidence, or just something. So if you do want to ask a question, please do reach out. I won't guarantee an immediate 24-hour response, but you'll certainly get something, because I've had it, I appreciated it, and it'd be nice to pass that on.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, I echo Frederick's thoughts here that everyone, even myself, and at this stage as well, we all need a sounding board sometimes. Or a mentor, or someone who you can just quiz on something that's on your mind. And likewise, anybody requiring anything in terms of bouncing an idea off, evaluating, and don't consider any idea as a bad idea. The fact that you've thought about it, there has to be some merit in it. yes, don't jump in and do something without a bit of diligence or a bit of fact checking. But again, feel free to reach out, and it doesn't cost much. Connect, LinkedIn, social media, website, WhatsApp, whatever is easy in today's day and age, and bounce it off, and we'll see what best response we can get you in a short span of time.
What I can offer, I think, which is useful to just about anyone, is guidance in storytelling. I give workshops on the topic, storytelling. I have actual recipes or blueprints for storytelling. I developed these years back because I discovered there are so many courses and coaches out there who talk about storytelling till they're blue in the face, and they'll all tell you, oh, well, everyone loves an underdog, and they'll tell you, make your story emotional, but they don't tell you how to do it. So I developed these various examples of mechanisms that will bring emotionality into storytelling, create an element of suspense, for example, paint pictures. I like to say, paint a story, write a picture. The other thing is writing skills. I also give workshops in writing skills, and I also accompany change processes. I have proprietary processes I use to bring key opinion leaders on board and to create messaging that effectively drives change and ties in to the inner purpose, not a purpose that you tell staff or supporters or clients or partners, this is your purpose, but a purpose that actually comes out of your stakeholder community. Big difference. And so I hope that's understandable. Any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm available. As Frederick said, I'm available almost 24/7. So please, I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Best of luck.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.